Hello, everyone. My name is Cheryl Tolentino, and I'm one of the supervising prevention consultants for new NJ4S Union Hub. Welcome to our Grounded in Gratitude Wellness through Heritage, Service, and Self-Care. Today's presentation will be Gratitude as a Wellness Practice, How Thankfulness Improves Mental Health by our own Armando Beleno. Armando Beleno is a graduate of Montclair State University with a bachelor's degree in psychology. His academic background encompasses a broad spectrum of psychological knowledge from adolescent psychology to abnormal psychology. A passionate music enthusiast, Armando enjoys a diverse range of genres from rap to K-pop. His travels to Nicaragua and Colombia, his parents' home countries, have deeply impacted him. Witnessing the lack of access to mental health resources in these regions fueled his desire to bridge the gap between those in need and the necessary support. Armando's personal journey includes experiences with anxiety and depression, which have instilled in him a deep understanding of the challenges faced by individuals struggling with mental health issues. Driven by a desire to give back and foster a greater understanding and communication within the mental health community, he aims to assist others in their journeys towards healing and well-being. Without much further ado, I will hand it over to Armando for their presentation on gratitude as a wellness practice. Welcome, Armando.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you for that lovely introduction. It's so great to be here to talk about a topic that's honestly very near and dear to my heart because I'm a person that likes to look at the bigger picture and likes to be extremely gratitude for everything that, they have in their life. So I'm gonna share my screen with you guys right now and we will begin. When I am talking about gratitude as a wellness practice, I mean it's more so of a state of mind, making sure that we're able to be very present in every single moment and giving that gratitude. So let's talk a little bit about why gratitude matters. Gratitude equals appreciation for what's good in life. So when I put this on the slide, I mean to say that when we're able to look back and see what we have in front of us, like some of us may have family, some of us may have health, some of us may have, wealth. We each have different things to be grateful for. Gratitude is a simple but very powerful practice. A lot of people may seem like, yeah, I'm grateful. It's easy to say that, but when you're able to channel it and look at what you're grateful for, then that's where it really counts. As well, it's relevant for everybody worldwide, not just for us as adults, but also for kids as well. So before we begin, if anybody would like to unmute or spam in the chat below, what is gratitude? What does gratitude mean to you guys?
I'll share. Gratitude to me means being thankful for the things that you have, being thankful for the things and the possible ways you can attain other things that you want.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jerusha. That is very true. I see we have something in the chat. Appreciation. That is so true. Like gratitude is very much so being appreciative. Because let's be honest, some of us have more than other people. Some of us have less than other people. But if we focus on solely what we don't have, we fail to see that appreciation. Thank you so much for saying that. So ultimately, gratitude is a positive emotional response to kindness, help, or life's goals, and it could be expressed in thoughts, words, or actions. What I like about this is that it doesn't state that gratitude is all black and white. It could be done in many ways. So for example, I'm telling you that I'm grateful for, having a roof over my head. Some people, they show it differently. They show that they're thankful for having a roof over their head by paying their bills on time, by, being present in their home, by helping people in their home, by showing their home to you. That's something very personal, and it's their way of showing the gratitude. So let's talk a little bit about the science behind gratitude. Now, gratitude is all based on our chemicals that we have in our brain. For example, Gratitude activates dopamine and serotonin. Now, these are those feel-good chemicals in your head that allow you to really, feel good. So, for example, it could be caused by little things such as, an action, like we said, or something that people say, or just by being very ever so present in the moment. And it allows you to strengthen those neural pathways for positive thinking. A lot of the times in life, it's very easy for us humans to go the negative way, and it's a lot harder to think when things are a little bit low about those positive things that we do have around us. So if we're able to, in terms, kind of always be grateful and see the positive, then, our brains are going to become stronger. They're going to think more positively and less negatively. So now we're going to talk a little bit about finding gratitude in simple moments. And when I talk about simple moments, I mean more so of just, getting together with family. I mean, always being able to see people that you never see. Or it could just be walking down the street and looking at the leaves fall during the autumn season. It could also be seeing the first snowfall of the year. These are things that, they don't have to be grand gestures. They don't have to be something otherworldly. They could be something very small and very significant to you. It doesn't have to be significant to everybody. And we also notice that just when you're able to recognize these small little things that may seem insignificant in the world, these things really help build your resilience. It really helps you see the positive in everything around you, even at the worst moments in life. So I want to talk a little bit about gratitude in school life. I want to talk about how kids nowadays, they are able to really recognize what's coming their way. They're allowed to see what a proper education really does provide them. When you're able to be in the school systems, it really does provide you that sense of stability and that sense of independence. As somebody who has been in the school systems as a student and now as kind of an educator, I'm able to really see how being a part of something in terms of a classroom really does help others, meaning in the sense that it improves the relationships with their people around them. When we're in these classroom settings, we really do learn about our social skills. We really learn how to strengthen those, especially our bonds with our peers around us. That's why, you're able to see a lot of kids, bond over maybe a test was a little bit harder. Maybe they were able to connect better through studying with each other. Also, if you're able to be a little bit more gratitude in school, then you're able to see, I have an education. There are a lot of people who have had it a little bit harder in life. They've needed to sacrifice their love for education or their need for an education to go into the workforce. When my mother was younger, she had to drop out of school so she could help her family out. Now, this was something that she never regretted, and she never held over her parents because she understood the value of hard work. She understood the value of helping her parents. Ultimately, what that has done for me is it allows me to be extremely grateful that she pushed me to have an education, that she pushed me to want that for myself. Also, when we're able to be in schools and we're able to just be more grateful about school, it helps alleviate that academic stress. I remember a specific moment when I was younger that I felt as if I couldn't complete college because it was extremely difficult. But I started to realize that, I'm in an upper level institution and I'm learning about the power of psychology and what that means. So, I'm able to really be grateful for the fact that I have this opportunity, and that shifted my mindset. It helped me reframe my mind, and it helped me really say, I'm gonna learn about this. I'm gonna force myself to do this because I have this opportunity that most people don't. And that allowed me to see, one, the value of education, but it also helped me see the value of pushing yourself and also building my resiliency. So now I want to talk about thankfulness at home. Thankfulness at home is something that, we push heavily around this time of season, especially with the holiday coming up. Something that I love to acknowledge is 100% how just being grateful at home and being around the dinner table with your parents is a big strengthening part of your resiliency, because you're able to see people, one, on a regular basis, they become the norm, and as well as you can promote different forms of communication, different forms of positivity, things that you want to develop as a person. One thing I can say is, growing up, I didn't really have family dinners. I didn't really have this. But now that I'm a little bit older and, we each have our own schedules and we come home and we kind of share, we have a moment with each other where we just kind of like, we check in, we see how everybody's day went. We joke around with each other, and we kind of just feed off of each other's positivity. And there's those moments are the moments where I'm like, you know what? This is what it's really about. Yeah, life may have its difficult moments where have to do things that you don't want to do. But ultimately, these are the real moments that count. These are the moments that, you want to see. And as well as seeing these people on a normal basis, that it really does encourage that appreciation over the criticism. Some families, they bring out the best in each other. They're able to kind of communicate with each other and provide that stability that is needed. People in this community, we are caregivers. We provide our students and we provide teachers, and as well as parents and families, with the sort of care. This is a great example of when this webinar, by everybody coming here, we're able to kind of give that care that is needed. We provide this care, and when we do provide it, it prevents burnout with others. We're able to kind of communicate with each other, and we're able to kind of spread a sense of light and positivity that this world sometimes senses to snuff out. As well as that, it helps us foster compassion and empathy. When we're able to see others who need help, we're able to understand, I can help this person. And I can have that sense of relatability. One thing that I live by is saying that people, they don't want your pity, they want your empathy. So that's one big thing that I live by. I try always to see others for how they are, being treated, not for how they want to be portrayed. I also, while we do this, it provides us a sense of emotional resilience. It helps us build up those building blocks and allows us to be more emotionally stable, in the sense of we know how to talk to people, we know how to provide those feelings of togetherness, those feelings of, I'm gonna be here with each other. So now we're gonna go into a couple of ways that we can foster this and sustain it. Our first one is definitely having a gratitude journal. One thing about this is I have this, but as well, I include it with other things in my journal. So in this journal, I write about my day-to-day. I write about things that, that ruffle my feathers. I write about things that stay with me, things that I begin to realize or start to open up a different wound. But what I always make sure to do, that by the end of the day, I always write 3 things that I'm grateful for the day. Whether it was this person held the door for me, and if they didn't hold the door for me, I would have dropped everything in my hands. They made that moment a little bit more easier, so that helped me. And one thing that I urge everyone, if they do adopt this into their day-to-day, is to remember that this is all about how you feel. This is an area where you can write, this is how this made me feel. And it doesn't have to be based on the facts. It could be solely based on your feelings, which is honestly one of the best things that I love about a gratitude journal. And when I also recommend with this, like, go into detail about why it made you feel that way. Like, were you having a rough day, or were you just struggling with, something that was a lot deeper and you didn't realize it was affecting you? But this moment here, this moment really allows you to reflect on that. Gratitude journals allow you to not only reflect, but to build up that resiliency that we're talking about, building up those building blocks that are needed. Our next way is writing gratitude letters. Now, this may be somewhat based on the last one about writing gratitude journals, but with this, what I really love about it is you can write it to someone who's helped you, but you could also write it to yourself. That's also something really meaningful, is to thank yourself for a lot of the things that we go through in our day-to-day. Because if you're not able to really reflect on who you are and the stuff that you bring to the table and how, you are a good person and how some people are lucky to have you around, then you can't really spread that positivity to other people. And I live by this in our day to day because we deal with, other people who either struggle with these kinds of things and they look for us to guide them a little bit. So that's why I'm very big on, refilling up your gas tank. Always make sure that you're filled up so that way you're able to do that. Another analogy to that is, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to refill your cup so that way you're able to pour it to the next cup around you. I've actually done this. I've actually written many gratitude letters to people. I've written it in relationships. I've written it in friendships. I've also written it to myself. One thing I did in January actually was I wrote a letter that is going to be sent to me a year from January. And it was somewhat dealing with, I was doing a lot of things at the time when I was going through a breakup, but as well, I was kind of in a place where I felt kind of lost. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. And I kind of lost my love for what I do. And I was able to write all that down. And at the end of it, I was like, but you want to know something? You show up. And sometimes that's what people need. Sometimes they need somebody to show up for them and put what they're going through aside. So I can't wait to get that letter, either as an email or in the mail or however it comes. But, it's a great way to reflect on everything you've been through. So our next thing is family gratitude rituals. Now, this is something that I feel like we develop culturally as we develop. I know for my family, being in a Latino family household, we celebrate the 24th instead of the 25th when it comes to Christmas. We call it Noche Buena, which means good night. And what that basically entails is, we come together kind of potluck style. We cook different foods. We sit around tables. We talk. The cousins, we play games, and we just kind of catch up because sometimes, life be lifing. Sometimes we just have a lot on our plates and we need these, family times to kind of reframe our everything and kind of look back at things. But it doesn't have to be big, like big family gatherings. It could be simple as the dinner table. One thing I like to say is always when you're sitting with family is just share one good thing that has happened to you, whether if it's at the table or at bedtime. If you're tucking in your daughter or your son, always include that thing. Like, tell me one thing that happened to you today that you're grateful for, or one thing that was very good for you today. I've also read that this helps with creating a gratitude jar. Some people, what they do is they write something down either at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, and it's something that they're grateful for. And then at the dinner table or at a big family gathering, they take the jar, they open the jar, and they put their hand in it, and they, flutter around with it, and then they take one out, and then they read it. And a lot of people say this is a good way to start a conversation about gratitude. It's a big thing to have gratitude, to be able to reflect on the things that happen, especially when you're in a negative moment, So we're going to talk a little about self-care, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm a big advocate for self-care, always put yourself first. And this looks different for all of us, which is the beauty of self-care. Always realize what works for you, because what works for you is not going to work for the next person. I always push that you should always notice how like your body and your health, how it all grows together. So for example, what works for me is having a journal as well as going to therapy. I really love to develop my mind and kind of reflect on that. I do also like to do physical things like going to the gym. I also want to try doing like yoga. I feel like yoga is a great way to kind of reframe yourself. It's a good way to kind of be more present in the moment so that way you could ground yourself more. We've always talked about being mindful, and this is no different. Gratitude is all about being mindful and being in the moment. but we really want to push that mindful appreciation within the moment. Always stay in the moment, because sometimes when we go into our own heads, we tend to focus on, oh, I didn't do well today in this presentation, or I didn't do what I wanted to do today. Always focus on what good you did in the day. And us as people, what I love to always say, because it is true, we do a lot of good and we do a lot of bad, but we always tend to focus on that negative part because it's always easier. It's always easier to sit down and reflect on the negativity when it's a lot harder to reflect that positivity. Earlier in the presentation, I said that we, have that serotonin, we have that dopamine. And when we're able to focus on those positivities, we're building those links in our brain to really connect ourselves to the present moment and strengthen our brains. So I urge everybody to practice your self-care, whether if it's meditating, journaling, going to the gym, being physical. Self-care is a big thing. And one thing I love about it is when I talk to people about self-care who've never really heard the term self-care, they're like, oh yeah, I do that stuff, but I don't call it that. And that's perfectly fine. You don't have to call self-care for you to be doing self-care. So I want to talk a little bit about the difficulties of being grateful, because let's be honest, we have those moments where we just say, you know what, I can't today. Like everything is bad. Everything is not the best. It's really easy to feel that way. And it's always important to acknowledge those feelings, because if you don't acknowledge the way you're feeling, whether if it's a negative or a positive, then ultimately you won't be able to stay positive for most of the times. It's okay to struggle. And one thing I always say is, just because I'm acknowledging that it is okay to struggle, that isn't me saying that, you know what, it's okay to struggle. I'm really saying that it's 100% okay to feel your way. Because like I said, we all deal with difficulties in life very differently. Some of us may choose to deal with it a little bit more mentally, while others tend to lash out and do it more physically. A way to combat these feelings of, oh, I can't be grateful today, or it's really difficult for me to have that gratitude for others, is, like I said, look for those small positivities in those difficult times. A good example is I was going through a hardship 3 months ago, and there was a lot of negativity around me. But one thing I was able to do is I was driving and I was extremely just in my head, aggravated. And one thing I did was I grounded myself in the moment by doing this trick that my therapist taught me called the 5-4-3-2-1 method, where you kind of focus on your surroundings and you get in tune with your environment. And I kind of didn't really do it properly, but I still felt grounded in the moment, because I was able to really look around and see for the first time that the leaves were falling. And this was like right at the end of summer, right at the beginning of fall. And I was looking around and I was feeling low, but I was able to look up at the trees, and I noticed some were very green, and then some were turning yellow, and then some were turning orange, and then some were turning brown. And at that moment, I realized the beauty of Mother Nature. I really realized how all of these negativities, yeah, they're negative, but this is happening around me, and I'm so focused on all the bad that's going on when the times are changing, the leaves are changing. And through that, light that I found within that darkness, I was really able to kind of reframe my mindset and really focus on, you know what, this is going on, yeah, sure, but there's a lot of other good happening. So just one little moment, that one small positive thing was able to help me kind of grow, and it was able to help me see more positives. Like I went from noticing, the life that's around me to the good things people were doing. They were smiling at you, they were holding the door open for you. So it opened the door for more positive thinking. So that's why I very harshly do push people to just look at very small things once in a while. It doesn't have to be one after the other. It could be one throughout the day, or it's three or throughout the day, however it is that you want to look at it or the way you want to process it. It's very really easier said than done. It really is. It's really easy for me to be here and say, oh yeah, be grateful. But it's one thing to say it versus, set things in order for you to do it. So one thing I like to say is definitely set those reminders. Reminders are a great way to kind of reframe your mindset. And the way to do this is just by like having a timer on your phone, and it could say, look around, or be grateful for this today. What's one thing that's going good for you today? Little prompts that can really help you. And one thing I love to do is I love to pair these with daily routines like brushing teeth or journaling. So, for example, in the morning I brush my teeth, but I also say, I'm like, all right, what's one good thing that you have going on today? And one thing I could have said was, you know what, I'm going to go to the mall. I like shopping. Who doesn't like retail therapy? Am I right? Another thing, I'm going to give a presentation today about, being grateful. Those are good things. And then I always like to pair that also with, like, at the end of the day, like, think about it. Think about what did for you. Go to that gratitude journal. Journal what happened today. And I always say celebrate your progress, whether if it's tiny, because it may feel tiny for others, but for you, it may be something very positive that you did. There are no small celebrations that are insignificant. There are always big celebrations that are extremely important. When we're able to kind of celebrate our tiny milestones, then it makes the bigger milestones easier to celebrate later. With this next part, I want everybody to kind of, take part in it. I want you guys to list 3 things that you're thankful for today. What made your day better this week? Since the week just started, I want everybody to focus on today. What has happened today that you are thankful for? And you guys can either unmute yourself and say your 3 things, or you could write it in your chat. However you guys would love to do it. No rush, and no. All right, we have one response in the chat. Let me. Supported friends and family. Yeah, that is one thing I feel like really does help, is having those people in your corner. Having those people who are 100% able to push you and support you, however that looks. Drew should also set meeting goals. That's good. I feel like when people have certain goals in their day that they set for themselves, like, I don't know about you guys, but I have kind of like a to-do list sometimes of what I have to do. And I just love checking things off. I feel like I feel really productive just checking things off my to-do list. So that kind of helps me meet my goals, is by having that list. Thank you, Jerusha, for sharing and everything. Waking up, my family, being able to celebrate the upcoming holiday. Yes, that is really true. A big motivator is honestly your family. That's one thing I really choose to see. And holidays are nice because you get to see those people that you never see. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, there are those couple of family members who you don't wanna talk to, but it's nice to see those people because sometimes you do want to know what's going on with them. Thankful for receiving this presentation. Oh, working from home on a cold day. Yes, that is very true. It is very cold today. Like, for those of you who are out there, traveling, doing what you do, please be safe, especially with, that powerful wind that we have. Having great friends and family. Yes. One thing that I love about us is us as people. We are extremely social beings. We need people around us to, develop successfully. So yeah, that's really good. Thank you, Cheryl. Waking up. Yeah, some people say that waking up is something that they really enjoy, because some people either have an alarm, some people wake up naturally. But they say when they wake up, a lot of things that they do is they just kind of like lay there and they look up at the ceiling and they think about, all right, today is going to be a successful day no matter what it is. Morning conversations with family. Oh, yeah. And I feel like those are some things that really do help when you have a family, is just being able to be like, so how are you today? Or like, how are you doing? Just like a good little catch up, and feeling accomplished. Yes. I feel like this is a really good thing to have, is knowing when you've accomplished something. Is just having that feeling of, you know what? I accomplished this today, or I accomplished this and it's only 12:30 in the afternoon. Um, for example, on Saturday, me and my father, we had to like run a couple of errands, and he got really happy because we were able to complete all the errands before 1 o'clock. He was like, "Oh my God, it's only 12:30. Wow, look at that." And I was like, yeah, we did everything fast this morning. Now look, now we have the rest of our day to kind of like do what it is we wanted to do. So yeah, thank you guys so much for taking part in this little activity. It's really nice to hear from you guys, your feedback, and it's really nice to, kind of get like a little look about, what's up with you guys today, how are you guys feeling, and what's really, really, making you guys feel good today. So thank you guys again for taking part in this little activity. So a couple of things I want to really touch on is gratitude really does change everything. And what I mean by saying that is when you're able to kind of like reflect and reframe those negative thoughts and turn them into positive thoughts and really see everything from a different light, you let a lot of things roll off of your shoulder a lot easier, like a lot of negativity. And that looks different for a lot of us. Like a lot of us allow certain things to stay with us, and a lot of things allow us to let things change us. Gratitude really improves, our mental state, and it can help somebody who's feeling the lowest of the low one day to feeling extremely high the next day. It allows you to stabilize your emotional intelligence. It allows you to stay really leveled from where you are. And as well, like your social health, it's good to be around people who help foster this gratitude way of thinking, because like sometimes we want to be around people who are more positive than others, because when we don't have that positivity, it's really easy to absorb that negativity that some people, spew, some things that people, find it difficult to do. Now, a little thankfulness goes a long way. Just like I said earlier, like those little positive moments really do help you open the door to a more positive mindset. So now I want to set a challenge for you guys. I'm not going to follow up with y'all about this, Y'all could do this on your own. So the challenge for this week, I want you guys to just practice daily gratitude. Like I feel like this is a really easy thing to do because it's really easy to be grateful. It's really easy also to shift your mindset. You just really have to believe it. That's why they say mind over matter. That's one thing that I also live by. So yeah, just practice gratitude for 1 week and see how it really does change your mindset. See how you feel. And a good way to track this is by, writing it all down. Be like, yesterday I felt more sad than I do today. And the reason was because I was able to kind of reframe my mind by really realizing that one little thing is not going to change everything forever. So that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for being here at this webinar. But before I turn it back over to Cheryl and Shakara, does anybody have any questions that they would like to spam in the chat or unmute themselves? And I would be more than happy to answer for you guys. Well, if there are no questions, thank you guys so much for being here at this webinar. It really does mean a lot to see your faces. And this is one thing that I'm grateful for, is just being able to connect with people who, want to hear from you, and honestly, who share the similar mindset that we all want to push. So this is our feedback forms. If anybody would like to just, leave some feedback, there you go. And lastly but not least, this is our email and this is our website. So thank you guys so much for coming here. I'm going to turn it back over to Cheryl and Shakara.
Thank you, Armando. I really did appreciate this presentation. Actually, I was telling Armando before we were on that I was looking forward to this presentation because it comes at a time when we really have to be thankful and putting gratitude in the forefront. And I think you didn't disappoint, Armando. You really didn't disappoint. And I really appreciate your personal experiences on how you practice it. That really helped hone it in. So I'm hoping that everyone as well enjoyed the presentation and took note of all his practical advice and tools to help us be appreciative and make sure that gratitude becomes an important part of our self-care. So thank you again, Armando. If you did enjoy this presentation, please go on the QR code and provide Armando positive feedback. We also are interested in what you have to hear, or what you want out in the community. So feel free to email us on that NJ4S Union prevention links email so that we can in the future provide more presentations or workshops about topics that are important to you and your wellness. Thank you again for joining us. We hope to see you next week when Alexa Brucal will provide us a presentation called Calm in the Chaos, Managing Stress for a Healthier Mind and Body. I hope everyone has a good day. Take care and be grateful.